How you doing? Well, that's good. You're listening to PHLY Flyers. That's right, PHLY, brought to you by our friends at Mortgage CS. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them in a minute, but just know they're our friends. Joining me, as always, well, no, I'm Bill Matcher, Director of Fun and Games. Didn't do that part. I'm trying to learn how to integrate all the stuff I have to say with what I always say. I'm Bill Matcher, Director of Fun and Games. Joining me, as always, Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. And our special guest today, Broad Street Hockey's own, Kelly Hinkle. How we doing? Everyone's in a good mood, happy with what they're seeing out of the Flyers. Things. I mean, we're all pretty pleased right now because jingoism, let's go USA. But I think with the Flyers, people are not happy.
They're getting back into the normal. The normal.
Things are returning to normal.
At least we got through the holidays.
Yeah, right?
At least the Flyers got us through Christmas, and now the doldrums of winter are here, and things are getting back to normal.
It's just falling back into the old habits. And I'm not just talking about the team. I'm talking about the fans. People are used to being mad. This is just familiar.
We're an unhappy people. And here we are. The Flyers have lost 6 of 7. I think they're 1-3-3. They did extract a few points along the way. But losing 6 of 7 is not good, especially in this ridiculously tight Metro division, this ridiculous Eastern Conference where everyone basically has somewhere between 40 and 46 points, unless you're Columbus, who, of course, beat the Flyers, because why wouldn't they? Or you're the Rangers, who beat everybody. Pretty much everyone else has the same record. So if you were real invested in this playoff push, it's going awry quickly. Let's just start with something good. I want to start with something good before we get into all of the scratch talk and all this. Travis Konecny. Named an All-Star last night, the second time in his career he'll be going to the All-Star game. He is right now on pace for 43 goals, 75 points. I am happy for this guy, not just because it means if they are to keep him, we'll talk about that in a minute, they have a legitimate star player. I don't know if we can call him superstar. You score 40 goals, though, and are around a point a game, you're a star player. Yeah. They have that, and I'm happy to see a man in this organization have a second level of development. When I'm talking about like Owen Tippett in my post game last night, like, you know what he's going to end with? 27 goals again. That's what's going to happen. He's going to hit the exact number of last year. It's like, okay, well, that just must be what he is. And I see Travis Konecny, and I think maybe there's another wave of development you can hit in your prime, as Konecny did, and that gives me optimism. Just talk about Travis Konecny for a few minutes while I gather my thoughts on where this show's going.
I think you make a really good point, because I do think a lot of hockey fans, Flyers fans specifically, because I know them, have a tendency to assume that, like, when a player's 23, like, that's what he is. He's never going to get any better. Like, don't put your stock in him. Like, I've heard a lot of Flyers fans complain that, like, actually the Flyers are a little too old to be excited about the players that we have, like, because we shouldn't expect them to get any better. And I think that Travis Konecny proves that, yeah, like you're saying, Owen Tippett could get better. This isn't what he is. It doesn't have to be. A lot of these guys could end up getting better than they are. And I think it's silly to just assume that once a guy hits, like you said, their prime age, that's the end of development. It's not. If they get put in a position to do well and they buy into a coach like he obviously has with Tortorella, then you can get a real pop from a player, and that's good. It's something that we can, I think, look forward to with a number of the guys we have on this team.
I think this is a way where the analytics mindset can go too far, because I think it's a good thing that people have acknowledged. Pre-analytics, I feel like a lot of people in the game would talk about how, you're not at your peak as a defenseman until you're 28 years old, or, the prime ages of players is between 26 and 30. Like, that's when they're at their best. And you really dive into the numbers
It's like
and
24
you look at
to 28.
Yeah,
actually.
it's probably more like 22 to 26 or 27 is when the guys are in their physical peak. But here's the thing, on average.
Right.
And that I think is the key, where like I don't think you can expect a player who is 26, 27 years old to deliver his best season. That's not a fair assumption to make. And the analytics way of looking at players is correct in that that shouldn't be the expectation. They were right to push back against the conventional wisdom. However, average doesn't mean that's the way it's going to work for every player. Some players will have their best season at age 27. Some players will have their best season at age 19 and then never match that. Like it's when we're talking about the average, we're talking about a bunch of outcomes smashed together. We're not talking about that like, oh, well, he's older than 23. That means he's never going to get any better.
Right.
It just means that on average, guys are usually at their peak at 23, 24. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to be at their peak at 23, 24. And it doesn't mean that we should give up hope that a guy can be a little bit of a late bloomer because those guys exist. Like, look at Travis Konecny. Travis Konecny, I think, especially now going by the way his career played out, I think what happened with Travis Konecny is that Travis Konecny in the 2019-2020 season, when I believe he was 22 years old, he broke out. That was the player he was going to become. Then the entire Flyers organization fell apart. And I think that dragged him down. That he was a guy who, if he was in a healthy organization at age 23, age 24, would have continued to grow and build on what he did at age 22. Instead, the Flyers were an absolute dumpster fire, and it hurt someone like Konechny's development. It hurt his progress, and it stagnated him and even turned him into a guy who regressed. Now that the Flyers are back to being a normal functioning organization that isn't a total dumpster fire, Konechny is back to building off of what he would have done in a normal functioning organization at age 23, 24. That's what I think happened with him.
Yeah, and how many of these kind of like mid-age guys that the Flyers have ever been put in a position to do well? None of them, really. Like even Owen Tippett, he wasn't getting a shot in Florida.
True.
Here he's getting a shot, so he's probably going to be able to grow into something a little bit better. All the guys that have been on the Flyers for a few years, as Charlie just said, were living in a dumpster fire. They probably weren't having a great opportunity to improve their skills when the team was an absolute disaster. So, like, it's not out of the realm that we have a couple more Konechnys on this team.
It's just, we were talking about Patrick Laine coming out of last night's game. Ages 18 and 19, he scored 80 goals.
Is that good?
He hasn't topped 30 since then. Like, watching that guy is like...
It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Development isn't.
We just watched him in a whole game last night. I didn't notice him one time. It's just very odd the way that's worked out.
Look at somebody like Carter Hart. Like, I'm not saying I even know what Carter Hart is ultimately going to become. Maybe this is all he is. He's just a good starting NHL goalie. But the fact that he had bad save percentages on teams that couldn't even do a line change right, like that's not his true talent level.
Yeah.
What
Goalies
he did at
are
age
never-
23 was like not what I would evaluate as him on a perfectly normal organization, because like these teams, the teams in 2020, 2021, so the year right after the pause, and then the year after that, the year where Alain Vigneault got fired, like those teams couldn't even do the basics of NHL hockey. It was impossible to accurately evaluate the young guys especially on those teams, because they were getting no support by their coaches or by anybody.
I just think of like, and you were probably at these practices, just when we're reading the reports, they practiced changing lines today.
Bless.
And it was like, dog, I played in middle school, high school. We didn't do that. We never got called for too many men, and we weren't good. We were all not good at hockey, but like we knew how and when to change. I was like, yeah, they're not executing this. We actually have to take time in practice to do it. Like, probably weren't going to get the best out of anyone when that's the base level of this organization.
It's a dark time.
I'm excited for Travis Konecny, but as now we switch the conversation to where this is going, and like I started off saying, they've lost 6 of 7.
Right.
Earlier in the season, like they had the nice, whatever it was, 3-1 start, and then they went into a little slump. We were saying after those games, these are kind of perfect rebuild losses where everything looks good, but a couple of things went wrong, so you lost. We can absolutely live with that. That's what you want to see out of a rebuilding team. The process has not been good in these last 7 games or so. Things are starting to go the other way, and I think what had me most excited about what this team was doing, winning these games, the way I would have done it if I was Keith Jones, we're going to go 0-82 and try to get Macklin Celebrini. That's how I would have done it. But when you're seeing these young guys contribute, Bobby Brink, oh my God, Bobby Brink, first couple, month and a half of the season, he was top 5 in rookie points. Like, here we go. Okay. You're seeing these young guys contributing. You're excited. Emil Andre makes the team. All right. If it's them, if they're the ones who are going to be the catalysts here, how can we be upset that they're winning? Well, now we are in worst case scenario territory where it's TK, and I'll throw Couturier in there, and the goalies, we said Carter Hart, but now Ersson and Hart are both kind of doing it. Well, we can mention Farabee. He's been awesome too. Yeah. But it's basically one line, and it's all dudes who've been here a while, and the goalies, and they're the ones, if they win, that are doing it all, and when they lose, it's like, look at who scored last night. TK twice, both times from Farabee and Couturier, and the goalie was pretty good again. Yeah. That's the worst possible case scenario.
But also, you just kind of brush aside the goalie. The goalie was good again. The goalie is Sam Ersson, who's another young guy.
Yes, I am excited about what Sam Ersson is. But if none of the defensemen other than Travis Sanheim are like, oh yeah, he's going to be here. Like, I don't think any of these guys are. Maybe Igor Zamula as the 6. If I look at these forwards and go, oh, none of them are going to be like good top 6 guys. I think Forster probably will. Bobby Brink has a good shot in that middle 6, maybe second, maybe third line. But like, it's kind of a worst case scenario of they're not ahead of schedule the way I thought they were. And if they're not ahead of schedule, the idea of re-signing Travis Konecny becomes kind of ludicrous.
See, I disagree. Because to me, maybe I disagree because I wasn't as excited about the last month and a half as you were. Like, to me, this is what I expected. You asked me in mid-December if I thought the Flyers were going to make the playoffs, and I still said no, because I still didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. I fully expected this to happen. So this is no surprise to me. And John Tortorella has been telling us this is going to happen. He's been telling us that, hey, we're going to start losing games.
He made sure.
Guess what?
Yeah.
They're losing games. They're losing a lot of games. And to me, them being ahead of schedule was not they're going to make the playoffs. To me, them being ahead of schedule is the process better? Are guys like Couturier and Sanheim not cap albatrosses? Are they still legitimately good players? Are quite a few of the young guys showing that they can be, in the next 2-3 years, legitimate contributing pieces to this? Like, I am not nearly as negative about this run, probably in part because I wasn't nearly as positive about the run before this as you were.
It's not my negativity about the results. It's that these guys who I'm counting, and listen, they could bounce back. It's always about how you respond. Maybe they come back out of this at some point. I just am looking at Tyson Forster like, bro, you got to score sometimes. Yeah. Bobby Brink, you have to be making a difference on more shifts than you are. Like, a couple of weeks ago, we're talking about Rasmus Ristolainen, and like, oh no, this is the playoff Risto we were seeing, and he's been fine. He's all right. But I can't say he's a guy I'm like, oh yeah, I'm happy we're paying him $5 million.
I was never happy they were paying $5 million.
I'm happy he's in the lineup despite making $5 million, I guess is the way I should have put that. I see this now, and I hate to use these time frames because it's become such a joke. But when I saw them as legitimately possibly 2 to 3 years away, keeping Konecny, that makes all the sense in the world. If it's gonna be 5, you can't.
I agree.
You simply can't do it.
But I haven't seen anything over this run to tell me that it's going to be 5. I still think it could be 2 to 3 because, Tyson Forster is 21 years old. His underlying metrics are still fantastic. Yeah, he's not scoring. But if he starts scoring, and again, he's 21 years old, I've always thought it was going to take some time for him to turn into the guy he's going to become. If he starts scoring, suddenly he's a really, really good player. Bobby Brink, I didn't even expect him in the NHL this year. The fact that he's doing anything is an upgrade over my preseason expectations for Bobby Brink. Cam York, I don't think he's going to be a star defenseman, but he sure looks like a perfectly fine top 4 guy to me. That's one fewer young top 4 guy you need to get, especially if Sanheim is legitimately a like number 2, number 3. And if Oliver Bonk in a couple years comes up and is a pretty darn good top 4 guy too, then all you really need is that clear-cut number 1. Easier said than done, sure, but it's fewer guys that you need to get because you got the rest of them. And I'm really liking what I've been hearing about Emile Andre playing down in the minors. So I don't know. I don't look at this as, again, I really think of what it boils down to, as I said, is that I wasn't as excited about the run in early to mid-December, which is why I'm not as disappointed about this decline, because I expected this decline. I guess, Kelly, where's your head at right now?
So I kind of think Saturday's game is kind of a big measuring stick, only because I do think we might be overreacting a bit to the fact that they were trash on the road trip, because they're literally always trash on this road trip.
True.
Always.
Except
last year, but that messes with my argument, so we're not going to mention it.
You know.
I mean, like, they're historically pretty bad on the Disney trip.
Yes.
They come back home last night, and their coach, for some reason, decides, I'm going to make it really hard for you guys to win this game.
Yeah.
Let's see what you can do. And so not really put in the best position there. If they can, with, the right guys back in the lineup, if they can put a game together on Saturday against Calgary that's pretty good, I mean, like, suddenly it's like, oh, okay, we're fine. Like, everything's fine.
The lineup decisions that have been made, and maybe it's just the coach, I don't know, just deciding I've been telling everyone we're going to lose some games and we're going to face some adversity, so I'm going to instill some adversity. Maybe this is all part of his big mind fuck, and it's going to work out in the end, but we're going to get to that in a second. First, I got to, because that's the second part of that.
Yes.
First, I got to tell you, though, about our friends at Mortgage CS. Mortgage CS stands for Mortgage Concierge Service, and that is exactly what they provide, is the best possible customer service for anybody who contacts them. You see Ben, the CEO's number up on the screen right now. You can call her, text them. If you have questions about where you are in the mortgage process, you want to see if you can apply, wherever you are, or you want to be like, what the hell's John Tortorella doing?
Yeah.
He will answer those texts. He will get back to you 100%, because that is what Mortgage CS is all about. They have full control of the lenders they work with. They're available 24/7. They're here to educate and empower their clients. We sat down with the people at Mortgage CS, and some of it they're breaking down all the ins and outs of the business. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't fully understand it, but they understood that I didn't understand, and they were able to put it in ways that I get. All three of us here are homeowners, and that process is arduous,
it was
to
pretty
say
awful.
the least.
Not great. Yeah.
It is not fun. And if you don't know where you are, like, oh, can I even get a mortgage? Can I even get a loan? They will figure that out for you. If you're not quite sure, you're looking down the line, they'll tell you this is what you need to do, so that when you're ready, you're actually ready. It's everything you've ever wanted from this sort of service Mortgage CS provides. When you hear the word mortgage, think of Mortgage CS. Think of Ben and Alex. Save Ben's telephone number. If you're listening on the pod, you don't see it on the screen. 267-391-7425. Save it to your phone. You can always email Ben at ben@mortgagecs.com. Call or text Ben any time of day or night to talk Philly sports. And check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to get started. We're still,
I think, and this is, I think, the second time I've had the opportunity to talk about this, but I think what's really cool about these guys is they want to essentially be, because before you buy a house, they are functionally unpaid advisors.
Yeah.
Like, this is a weird time to be wanting to buy a house. Interest rates are through the roof. And maybe you're looking at it and you're saying, you know what, like, I don't think I want to have that big of an interest rate for my mortgage right now, but I do have the plan in the next 2-3 years. Hopefully things go down a little bit. Your financial situation's in a little bit better shape. Maybe I want to go down that path. And the great thing about these guys is you can text them now and just ask them questions, pick their brain, and they're not going to be asking you for money. It's just going to be like, hey, we want to build up a rapport now with you, so that when you're ready, you come to us and you trust us to help you out. And, as you said, as we've said, we've met both of them. They're good people. one thing that I thought was really cool was that after we did the first read on the first night, they got back to us through our advertising rep and said, we got so many texts from people that are already excited. So honestly, even if you just want to drop them a text and say like, hey, thanks for supporting, PHLY Flyers. We followed Bill and Charlie and Kelly for so long. We appreciate you being on board. And I just think they like the idea of being part of the community that we build. And I think that's what's exciting for both of us.
It's huge. And again, like the house buying process, it sucks. They can make it a lot easier for you. And they're also, as Charlie said, interested in building up that community. Getting on the ground floor with them. A lot of the way we're like, let's build this PHLY now for the Flyers so that when they're good, this is the place you come.
Yeah.
Get in with Mortgage CS now, and when you're ready to buy a house, you already have that rapport. You already have that relationship. They're building that community as well. So go to mortgagecs.com/PHLY to get started. All right, we have done our duty with that. I want to get to the second part of why I'm not all that excited about, I won't say not excited about the future. Like we're watching Cutter Gauthier leading World Juniors and scoring. Yeah, he had the goal yesterday to put them into the gold medal game. It's on right now. Like obviously Mishkov's coming over. You mentioned Oliver Bonk. Yeah, eventually.
We sure hope so.
Yeah, eventually. Oliver Bonk, Denver Barkey's been killing it. Like there's lots of reasons to be excited about the future. There's guys on the Phantoms. Or are there? That's where I start to like, all right, if this is going to be a team that's ready to compete in 2-3 years, like actually compete, maybe not for a cup, but to go on a run of some kind. They need dudes in the system right now who are ready to jump into an NHL lineup and be good players. Last night they scratched Cam Atkinson. He has not been good for months at this point.
About a month
they scratched Morgan Frost because his name is Morgan Frost, so they scratched
pretty much.
Right.
Yeah. They replaced him with a guy named Rhett Gardner, who has 4 points in the AHL this year. And they decide, you know what, that's enough. We took out 2 forwards. They're only going to put 1 in, and he's not very good. He got 1 shift in the third period, while Nick Delorier comes back into the lineup, plays no shifts in the third period. So they went with 9 forwards in the third period of a game last night.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The fact that they don't have the confidence to go with any of the Phantoms, maybe it's Cooper Marody, who, only has 7 games NHL experience, but he has 8 goals, 27 points in 31 games in the AHL this year. Now, he has a -13, so maybe he's just a guy who scores for them, and he couldn't really play in the Tortorella system, whatever he asks. But you also look at Samu Tuamala, a young guy that got an extended look in camp. 8 goals, 25 points in 31 games. Lazinski, 8 goals, 23 points in 26 games. Ali Lixell, 12 goals in 26 games. Garrett Wilson, who has 84 games of NHL experience, 16 points. Daniel Yeh played 4 games last year. Wade Allison, 75 games of NHL experience, including 60 last year. Nah, none of these guys can come up. It's got to be Rhett Gardner, who we don't trust to play.
He definitely exists.
If this is what they have, it's like, we're not going to do it. That tells me you don't think they can help you win. And if they can't help you win, what are they going to be ultimately?
Okay. I want to take a big old step back here because I think you're going. I think you are taking this a bit too far. Because
Bill?
They went with 9 guys in the third period.
So here is my suspicion as to what the thought process was behind the whole Rhett Gardner
Oh, I
thing.
wonder if it's the same as mine.
I think this was more than a repudiation of the guys in the AHL. This was his way of sending a message to Atkinson and Frost to basically be like, this is how badly we don't want you in the lineup right now, that we are basically willing to talk. Because here's the thing. Those guys are, a lot of the guys you mentioned, aside from Garrett Wilson, because he's not even on an NHL contract, they wouldn't be able to play him even if they wanted to. They are better. However, Danny Briere is not here right now. Danny Briere is in Sweden watching the World Juniors.
Ooh.
That's where he is. That's where him and Jonesy are. They are watching Cutter Gauthier do Cutter Gauthier things. My guess is that, they were not going to have Samu Tuamala make his NHL debut without the general manager in the building. Okay? It just wasn't going to happen. They wanted to have, Danny Briere was going to want to watch one of their better prospects make his debut. I think Samu Tuamala very well might have been in the building because Samu Tuamala's brother was in the building, and Samu Tuamala the day before the game went to a Sixers game. Like, I think this was a purposeful point that Tortorella was trying to make to the team that, no, Morgan, we're not benching you because we want to give Samu Tuamala a shot. We're benching you because we're ticked off at you and we don't think you're playing well. And Cam, same thing. Do I agree with that thought process? No, not really.
That's petty. That's petty and
not
stupid.
Really. But I think this was the decision that was made was all about sending a message. It was Tortorella trying to send a message because he knew, hey, like, I'm not going to be able to call up a prospect while my GM is overseas. Like, that's not going to be a thing.
It's 2024. They have the fucking internet in Sweden.
It's not that. It's the fact that he wanted to send a message to Cam Atkinson and Morgan Frost, and he was willing to go out there with a weaker team to send the strong message that he wanted to send.
Why can't you send that message with Wade Allison? Like, you can still say,
because they're not happy with Wade Allison.
Well, here's my
they're not happy with them.
Are they happy with Rhett Gardner? He's no good.
So this isn't the first time they called up Gardner, right? I'm not.
No, he called. No, this was the
first time he played.
He was called up. See, that's the thing. I think he was called up not because of anything that Rhett Gardner did. He was called up to be the emergency call up on the road trip.
Okay.
And because he happened to still be here when Tortorella sent a message, he happened to be the guy that came.
So here's my problem with this. I'm worried that he is like Ian LePerriere's little pet. Like, Ian LePerriere likes the way he plays the game because he's not good.
He's not. Rhett Gardner is irrelevant. Do not worry about Rhett Gardner.
He's a non-playing character. Like, he's nothing. So the point is,
Mark Alt.
Yeah, like, probably worse than Mark Alt, actually. But like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you're punishing the entire team. Now, you're not just punishing Morgan Frost and Cam Atkinson. You're punishing the entire team. You're punishing the 18,000 fans in the building to see you come home. You're punishing us because we have to watch and talk about it. Like, that doesn't make any logical sense.
Yeah, that's asinine.
It makes sense to Torts.
If that's what he did, like,
he threw a game. Basically, decided to throw a game against a last place team.
Every decision he made for this game last night was like a distillation of all of the problems I have with John Tortorella and all of the worries I have about him as a coach of a rebuilding team. And it's worrisome to see that it really didn't take much for him to get back to this spot. Like, they lost a bunch of games, sure, but a lot of the losses were like that Detroit game, which were fun as hell and really close. Okay, they lost it, but like,
they lost the Detroit game because Carter Hart hadn't played in 2 weeks.
Right.
Like,
so whatever. But if it gets worse than this, what's going to happen? Like, how petty and weird are we going to get with the lineup if they play worse than they played on this road trip?
It's a good question. I think Torts is in scratch mode right now. And if the team keeps losing, more guys are going to get scratched.
So,
I mean, I don't have a problem with the scratching. The scratching is fine.
No, it's just like, if you're not replacing them, like, you can't help us win games, so we're going to put in someone who can. That makes good.
Sense. Yes.
You're not helping us win games, so we're going to lose them on fucking purpose.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
And
I'm going to shoot myself in the head because
I'll show you.
Like, that'll show you.
Okay.
So the way Tortorella looks at it is he sent a message to those two guys, and he sent a message to the rest of the team saying, I want you to carry the load. Like, yes, do I think it was ridiculous that Travis Konecny played 26 minutes and Sean Couturier played 23? Yeah, but John Tortorella doesn't, because John Tortorella looks at it and says, you know what? These guys maybe are falling into the trap of thinking that they're too tired to win. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be like, well,
make them more tired.
No, but seriously, that's the way he looks at it, is that, okay, you're going to say you're tired. I'm going to force you to go out there and just find a way to get past that tiredness and find a way to make it so that's not an excuse to go out there and just empty the friggin' tank. Do I agree with this entire philosophy? No, but the philosophy isn't, as you said, that they think the guys in the AHL stink. That's not the philosophy. This is John Tortorella's way, in my mind, of trying to not necessarily throw a game, but maybe sacrifice a few percentage points of likely win percentage to try to make a point that he thinks will make the team better in the long term. Again, he might be right, he might be wrong. I personally wouldn't go this route, but this to me is more of a coaching tactic than him and the organization not thinking that Tanner Laczynski or Samu Tuamala can play, or not thinking that that game was worth winning.
Frost and Atkinson coming out
Whatever. Yeah.
I mean, especially Atkinson, he deserved it. Frost, they
We're
don't think.
basically just mad about Frost because if they would have just scratched Atkinson and just threw Rhett Gardner in for Cam
whatever.
Atkinson and kept Frost in and dressed 12 forwards, no one would have cared.
No, because going 11 forwards, 7 defensemen when you don't have to is fucking crazy to me. It makes no sense.
Maybe you want to reward Mark Stahl for scoring. You also don't want to
No.
take out Zamula. It's just
Buy him
Frost
lunch.
and Atkinson coming out. Like Frost and Atkinson coming out. That's whatever. They didn't replace them anyone. But also what happened on top of that. I mentioned Delorier and Gardner. They combined for 1 shift in the third period. They both play under 7.5 minutes. This also means Paling needs to play 15:10. Hathaway needs to play 15:30. Lawton needs to play 18:08 to make up for it. You're not gonna win that game.
No, he threw that game.
That's
I don't
losing on purpose.
think he threw that
You
game.
can't make those
He
decisions
said these 2 points aren't important.
and not know
I-
that the likelihood is that you're going to lose. This
I would say, well, number one, I would say Columbus is legitimately that bad
They
that
stink.
they
That's true.
could
They
they
are
could have
horrible.
won anyway.
I mean, fair.
I think it's less that they were throwing the game and more that John Tortorella basically said, you know what, like if I maximize the quality of the lineup, we probably have a 62% chance of winning this game. If I do what I did, we have a 51% chance of winning this game. I've turned it into a coin flip, and I purposely am making my lineup weaker because I want to make a larger point to those 2 guys and to the rest of the team. Again, I don't agree with it, but I don't think this is him saying, oh, well, we're just going to lose this game because I'm pissed off at Morgan Frost. There was a thought process behind it, even if I think the thought process behind it was faulty.
Yeah, the thought process was, we'll see.
Yeah.
Like that's just stupid to me. Like that is punishing the entire team for guys you're mad. Like Cam Atkinson hasn't scored in 22 games. You know whose fault that is? Cam Atkinson's. Morgan Frost, whatever the problem is with him, that's the problem with Morgan Frost. Why are you taking that out on, the young players I mentioned who didn't get a shot, as well as the guys in the lineup who are working their ass off, despite being maybe both banged up and sick like Travis Konecny is, or like all the undisclosed injuries we don't know about because it's hockey and dudes just play. Like you're taking it out on all of them, and that is what leads to his message getting lost sooner
Yeah.
than you'd like it to be.
It's certainly possible. And
That's what leads to it.
And that's the risk you take. The risk you take as a coach is how many times can you go to the scratching well? How many times can you purposely make a win more difficult to achieve for your existing players before they start saying, this guy's crazy? I don't think he's there yet. I think the team still trusts and likes Torts. And we'll get into this a little bit later when we talk about Atkinson and presumably Frost's response. We did not get to talk to Frost today. We did talk to Atkinson. But I think we more or less got Frost's response to this via John Tortorella. And I think both of their responses were positive, which is good.
I want to do Atkinson before I do Rocket Money because I'm fired up about this now.
Okay.
Let's talk about Atkinson. So Torts spoke on Atkinson, and Atkinson spoke as well today.
Yes.
He's obviously, we know the history of these two goes back to Columbus. He scored 40 goals for Tortorella.
There's a lot of mutual fondness there between the two.
He is one of the Torts guys.
Yes.
So take us through Torts talking about Atkinson first.
So Torts basically said, look, I mean, he wasn't willing to give an explanation after the game as to why. He more just said, the players know. That's all that matters to me. Today, he went into a little bit more detail, and he more or less said, look, Atkinson hasn't been scoring goals, and that's his job, but it goes beyond that. And this was the quote that I thought was a really interesting one. He said, I have too much respect for him to let him to continue to go down the road he was going. And
that's as damning as you're going to get out of, especially for one of his guys.
That basically, I was seeing his entire game fall apart, and Atkinson probably getting frustrated and letting his details slip. And Torts was just like, I can't let that stand. And Torts more or less said, look, I gave him a longer leash than I would have otherwise because Atkinson missed all of last season. This was just a bridge too far. And my guess the bridge too far was that incredibly stupid penalty that he took at the end of the second period against Edmonton.
Because that's what, like, Atkinson, when this slump started, it was like 4 or 5 games in a row where he had at least one breakaway and just didn't score. And it was like, well, this is going to even itself out. This guy scores goals. He's still putting himself in position. They're just not going in. And then it was like, oh, he's reaching a lot with his stick. He's doing like he was taking penalties. There's, I think, like 5 penalties in 4 games or something he took. It was just getting to the point where the rest of his game was going down. And that's what Torts acknowledges there. I fully see that. And I don't have a problem with the scratchings, especially of Cam Atkinson, because he has been bad. And I do think that sends him like, you scratch Morgan Frost, no one in that locker room is going to bat an eye. It's the 11th
I'm sure they
time.
knew it happened.
It's the 11th time this year, and we're not halfway through the season yet. Like, oh, yeah, makes sense. Like, when it's Cam Atkinson, everyone's going to look around and go, oh, shit, that's his buddy. Like, they go to dinner, you know? Like, so I get that message sending. It's just the fact that you decided not to replace him. That's what frustrates me. Yes. But Cam Atkinson, you got to talk to him as well.
Yeah, and Atkinson, I mean, we can say that a guy says all the right things, and generally speaking, guys do. Atkinson really, I would say, said all the right things in that he didn't even, like, when we've interviewed guys like Joel Farabee, or Travis Konecny, I mean, I'm not saying they did anything wrong here, but, Kevin Hayes last year, they would be like, yeah, I disagree with the decision, but he's the coach, I'm the player, and, I just have to live with it, and I have to, push through and deal with it and be a better player. Cam Atkinson straight up said, I deserve to be scratched. His quote was, I take full ownership of the scratching and deservedly so. I got to get back to playing with my energy and demanding the puck and wanting the puck. I've kind of let that slide, hoping that things would come my way. And obviously they haven't. So this is exactly why John Tortorella likes Cam Atkinson so much as a person, because this is catnip for John Tortorella. Yeah. Like, come on. This is music to his ears. This is exactly what he wants a player to say after being scratched, is that it was totally my fault. The coach was right.
I have no segue, and I can't see the score of the game. Do we have an update? It's 4-2 USA. Outstanding. Well, if you've been following my saga on Twitter, I was trying to figure out a way to watch the World Junior Championship because I have YouTube TV, so I don't have NHL Network. No one has NHL Network. And I ended up getting a free trial of Fubo. Oh. Now, I am an idiot, so I'm definitely going to forget to cancel this free trial. That's why I need a service like Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. I can see all of my subscriptions in one place, and if there's something I see that I don't want, I can cancel with just one tap. I never have to get on the phone with customer service, that's my nightmare. They'll even try to get you a refund for the last couple of months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over 500 million in canceled subscriptions. You're thinking, no, it's a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there. No, it adds up.
Sure does.
It adds up very quickly. I told you just last week I subscribed to New Japan World because I wanted to watch Wrestle Kingdom. Well, guess what? That is come and gone. I am still subscribed. I badly need Rocket Money, so I can just click it and it takes it away for me. So I'm not charged the 900 yen next month. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY. All right, now let's get to
I love that point.
It's my favorite part. Let's get to the Morgan Frost of it all, because goddamn, I love this conversation. It's so fun.
I love talking about him. He's my favorite player.
I'm acting as if I'm upset about it, but it's the decision to sit. Has he been scoring? No. In the 16 games without Noah Cates, he has 7 points. This was your opportunity. You're not taking advantage of it. I'm disappointed for you.
He's been okay, though. It's like he's been bad.
No, he has been fine. Yeah.
But it's clear that he has to be more than fine.
He needed to be the guy who he was last. And I mean, like, he missed one game last season.
Yeah.
He came in this year having done what he did in the final 55 games, and the coach was like, yeah, we'll see. And the we'll see is 11 scratchings in the first half of the season. Like, he's on pace to miss 22 games. That's wild to me. He hasn't stepped up, you would say.
I would agree with that.
He's been fine for a lot of it. Some people believe his trip was bad. Other people believe it was the same as everyone else's, and that's why they weren't good on the trip. But obviously, it's John Tortorella. If there's someone to blame, it's like, well, I have a list of 5 guys. One of them's Frost.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Like,
it's his fault.
What is going on with the Morgan Frost situation?
I just think that's what it boils down to, is that it seems like every time the Flyers are struggling, every time the Flyers go through a rough patch, John Tortorella just brings out his in case of emergency bench Frost button. Like, it's just go-to. And I talked about this on Twitter yesterday I think it was before the game, where what it really boils down to, and this is the key to it all, he doesn't see Morgan Frost as essential to this lineup. And we've even talked about this, about the fact that the Flyers have played some really, really good stretches with Morgan Frost benched. And it's one of the reasons why it's hard to get too angry at him being scratched, because it's not like the team falls off a cliff when he's not playing. They usually play pretty decent, pretty much the exact same way they play with him in. And like, compare him to a guy like Laughton, who we all agree is not having that great of a year. In spite of the fact that Laughton is not having that great of a year, especially by his standards, he is still on the top shorthanded goal duo with Travis Konecny. He still is the only guy wearing an A. He gives them a reason, aside from point production, to keep him in the lineup. You have even a guy like Ryan Poehling, also a penalty kill guy, a penalty kill stalwart. There are guys on this team that maybe you could point to and say they should be benched. Bobby Brink, yeah, he's an offense guy like Frost, but he's also a rookie. So they're going to prioritize his development more than a guy who's been in the league for a few years. They look at Morgan Frost, I think, John Tortorella especially, looks at Morgan Frost as the easiest guy to pull out of the lineup when he wants to send a message, because it doesn't have as big of an impact on the rest of the lineup as pulling out a guy like Scott Laughton would. The only real impact it has is on the power play, but Morgan Frost can't score on the power play anyway, so who gives a crap?
Nobody.
I just think that he looks at Frost as the easiest guy to pull out of the lineup when he wants to send a message. He doesn't particularly love Morgan Frost on the whole, so it's just easy, and he goes to press that easy button, which is the bench Morgan Frost. I think that's really what it boils down to when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it.
That's all well and good. Like I said, I don't even think it matters if Morgan Frost turns out somewhere else, because it's never going to happen here. The guy who seems to have at least half the say, if not more, does not like him, so it doesn't matter. He's not going to make it here. That said, in a situation like last night, the team is worse without Morgan.
Yes.
And I again, don't believe in him. Think he's probably just going to be a guy, and if he figures it out somewhere else, I was wrong. Tip of the cap. The team in a situation last night is worse without Morgan Frost because they replaced him with nobody. They said having no one is better than having Morgan Frost.
Gardner has 4 points, Bill.
In the AHL.
That's not
In the AHL.
On a team that seems to have a bunch of scorers, they went with the guy who isn't one of them. Yeah. This is just what baffles me about the decision. You made the team worse on purpose. Maybe this is all part of the big culture building scheme, but I don't see how when you've been like, we're going to be the team that works hard. We don't tank. That's not what we do. This is akin to that. It's not, we're going to put out a bad lineup on purpose. It is, though, we're going to make this as hard as possible for no reason other than I'm mad. And I'm mad, so I'm going to take it out on Morgan Frost, even though everyone has sucked. Nick Delorier back in the lineup, but doesn't play in the third period. Why'd you play him?
Yeah.
Why is Nick Delorier more important against the Blue Jackets, who in the first half of this game seemed more than happy to lose it 3-1?
Yeah.
They would have been very pleased with themselves if they lost. Nothing happened in the first 35 minutes of this game.
It was very boring.
It was just back and forth. It was a free skate out there. You didn't need Nick Delorier in the lineup, but he's got to play, except until it gets to the third period, and then no.
Yeah, when you need good hockey players.
The whole thing is just, it makes no sense to me. And he can explain it in any way, and maybe I'll be wrong in a couple of weeks when Cam Atkinson has another 8 goals in 15 games like he did to start the season, and maybe Morgan Frost turns it up, because that's what we heard about Morgan Frost today. He actually went to the coach.
This, I think, is maybe the most positive thing that came out of this. And I am still of the belief that this is going down the path of Morgan Frost getting moved, not necessarily at the trade deadline, but like in the offseason, that both sides are just going to agree that, hey, this just ain't going to work. However, if it does actually work and Morgan Frost, by some, infinitesimal chance, is still on this team and a key member of this team 5-6 years down the road, I could easily see us point to this particular day as the start of the turnaround, of the turning point. We've talked about trying to figure out like what doesn't Torts like about Morgan Frost. What is it? Is it the fact that he's not that physical? Probably. That's probably part of it.
He's been more physical lately.
Is it the fact that he isn't that great defensively? Probably part of it in the beginning. I do think he's gotten better defensively. The numbers have gotten better. He seems like a more detail-oriented player this year than he was last year in his own zone. He's never going to be a Selke guy. Like, sorry, that's just not who he is. But he's going to be a better defensive player than he was 2 years ago, and that's good. So what is it? What ticks Torts off so much about Morgan Frost? And I think we might have gotten a hint as to what it was today.
So annoying.
But it's so Torts.
I know.
I think he has long viewed Morgan Frost as something of a pushover who doesn't have the kind of pushback that he wants out of a player, that he just doesn't have that fire in the belly. And that's why today was interesting, because leading up to the scratch, John Tortorella said, because Morgan Frost, we wanted to talk to Morgan Frost. He kind of ducked out while we were talking to Cam Atkinson. We asked to talk to him. He apparently got out of the facility. He didn't want to talk to the media. You know what? That's fine. Whatever. He's ticked off. It's all good. But John Tortorella gave us some really interesting and important context here. So Tortorella said that he had 2 conversations with Frost before the benching. They had one general conversation, I think probably about Torts' and the coaching staff's general dissatisfaction with Frost on the plane ride back from Edmonton, on the plane ride back from the trip. And then, because they canceled morning skate on Thursday, he couldn't have a conversation with him in person, so he called him on the phone and he gave his specific reasons as to why Morgan Frost was not playing on Thursday. Apparently, at some point this morning, Morgan Frost basically marched into Torts' office and said, we need to talk more. And here's the quote. I was thrilled that he came in and wanted to talk and gave me some of his thoughts and not agreeing, essentially, with the decision to scratch him. This is a huge step for me with Frosty, is him coming in and saying, you know what? This is what I think. It's so important that players do that. It creates a bit of a path for him and I as we try to go through this. Like, I really think that Torts has been like almost like waiting for Frost to do this, and you can roll your eyes, but this is John Tortorella.
I know.
This is what he wants out of guys.
Take your shirt off and fight me, and then you can play. Like,
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
That's who he is.
And it's like, it's just so stupid. And
But that's Torts.
I know. I accept it. I understand it. But it's so fucking stupid.
Thinking back to like Torts early, the Tampa Bay teams, strips the C off of Vinny LeCavalier. Those two have had, by both saying, so many fuck you arguments. Back in, now they talk on the phone all the time. They're pals. Dale Weiss, I heard an interview with him recently where he was talking about Torts, and it's like, you know, when I was a young guy, he started out with the Rangers, like when Torts was there, and didn't know he needed to push back against him. And then he's in Vancouver with Torts, and he goes, oh, I'd go into his office and tell him to fuck himself, and he loved me. This is who he is.
It is.
It's so fucking
Every former player who actually likes him now goes, basically, you need to get in a fight with him, and then he's your pal.
Yeah.
And this is what he wants from guys. Whether it's right or wrong,
Whatever.
Morgan Frost going in there and disagreeing with him might actually be a good step for this. Do I think it's all going to work out? No, because I just don't think he's his type of player. But maybe.
Yeah. This is the first time where I'm like, maybe. Because, again, he just, like, look, they trust Torts' ability to identify talent. They very clearly do. Keith Jones and Danny Briere, they trust him. But I think what they almost trust him more about is his ability to find guys that got that dog in him. And I really do think that's part of this, is that John Tortorella acknowledged, John Tortorella for the last year and a half has been seemingly, and I don't think he's doing it for this reason, but he has almost tried to get a rise out of Morgan Frost. And if every time he scratched Morgan Frost, and Morgan Frost, you know, when he talks to Frost, and Frost just says, okay, coach, I'll try to do better. Like, Frost leaves Torts' office, and Torts just thinks to himself, this kid just don't got it. Like that's the exact opposite of the reaction he wanted to get from scratching Morgan Frost for 2 straight weeks. And it seemed like today, Torts was like, Finally, I got him to yell back at me. We're making progress.
That's 11 scratchings later.
It's just so
in the first 3 months
weird.
of the season. Oh, man. I just have to tell you real quick about Foco, because Foco is the absolute best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. Whether you're looking for team apparel for the season ahead, they've got overalls, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags, anything you need for game day. Maybe you're in the market for some accessories, toys, or collectibles for your man cave, she shed, or podcast set. You've got to use Foco for all your team gear needs. Foco always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in the description of this show. For all non-presale items, use promo code PHLY10. That's promo code PHLY10 for 10% off. Go to Foco today. Make sure you go to my Twitter and watch my video, because it doesn't have nearly enough views. Foco Claus visited me and left the ugly eagle sweater, and it's gorgeous. And I don't know. I just think this video needs everyone else. Oh, look at the sweater. It's so cool. I did a whole skit. I came out of my bedroom. My wife's filming it. Like, come on, there was some production value in this thing.
Sorry, Bill. We gotta ease your ego here. I get it. You worked hard on that video.
I haven't been here since that video debuted, and it was, in fact, brilliant.
Yeah, the quick cut from me having my hair down, and then suddenly I'm wearing the sweater with it. Come on. But shop at Foco is the most important thing. Use promo code PHLY10.
Going back a second, because I was about to say, as where you jumped into the read.
I'm going to get it
the Foco read. You know what the Torts Frost relationship kind of like the fact that Frost didn't speak with the media today tells me that like Frost is still pissed off. But I compare it to, you know, the scene from Jerry Maguire where they get into the fight and then Cuba Gooding Jr. is like, "You think we're fighting? I think we're finally communicating." Like that to me is like Frost is Jerry Maguire stomping away all angry, and Torts is Cuba Gooding Jr. like, "This is great. We're finally talking."
And we have said many times about John Tortorella, what everyone says about him is redeeming quality, because he does present often as an asshole. His redeeming quality is, whether you see it or not, he cares deeply for his players.
Actually
he's not
Mike Babcock.
There's a scale, and if Babcock's all the way over here, he's at like the 45%. You know, like he's not, and that's the difference. He cares he's trying to push you to that point because he thinks it will make you a good player. Now, could he treat some guys differently, and maybe there's not a one size fits all? Potentially, and that's why
I would agree with that.
Certain players, like who are very good, are like, no, he's an asshole, and my career was better off without him.
Yeah,
it exists, but he has had quite a bit of success.
There are some guys that absolutely slip through the cracks of John Tortorella because, like, his way is not going to work for everyone, and some of the guys it doesn't work for are actually really talented and will be good elsewhere when away from John Tortorella. On the flip side of it, though, there are other guys who are better for being with John Tortorella.
Oh,
example being Rasmus Ristolainen.
100%.
Like, so it's a positive and negative thing. Like, there are positives. There are guys that will improve because they thrive under the type of treatment that John Tortorella gives out to his players. And then there are some guys who just, it's never going to work for, and they need to get out of here. And for a long time, I had come to the conclusion early this season, basically when they had that long scratch of Frost, that like Frost is just one of those guys that his personality for whatever reason just doesn't mesh with Torts. And for his own sake, I hope he gets traded, because I want to see if he is actually a legitimately good player when he's away from Torts. Today was the first time where I thought like, okay, I'm still 90% sure this ain't going to work, but maybe there's a little bit of hope. Maybe.
I wish we had Torts and Jake together at some point.
Oh God, that would have been so
that would have been a
good.
disaster.
So good.
Is Jake too like sarcastic, passive aggressive? Like where he just be like, oh yeah, okay, fuck off. Like, or would they actually go head to head? It just would have been fun.
It is possible. It's possible that Jake's ability just to speak his mind at every time, that maybe they would have ended up loving each other, because like here's the reason why I don't think they would have loved each other. Torts would have hated Voracek's style of play.
Yes.
And I do not
perimeter player.
And I do not know if Voracek would ever have been willing to change. But if he could have gotten through to him, they would have been like lifelong pals.
Because I always saw Jake, like, it's a shame his career ended so like short, because like I always saw him as a guy who would age well because of his size, because of his hands. Like if he used to learn to use that physicality a little, like he would have been tremendous, sort of almost power forward, but not exactly. But like anyway, let's get to some fun stuff.
Okay.
The boys are going to do it, by the way.
The boys are going to do it?
All right.
6-2.
USA, baby.
Boys are back in
Our
town.
Do we have a
boy-
box score? Do we have any?
Did Cutter get
No.
anything?
I don't know if he got any assists, but he did. He did
Okay,
get any.
Did
has not
score.
scored
Okay.
a goal. Let's get to what is not a goalie controversy, but it is a competition.
7. Oh, wait.
Carter
no,
Hart
sorry.
versus Samuel Ersson. Hart
Oh, God.
Hart on the season, 912 save percentage, 266 goals against in his last 5, and 899 save percentage. Ersson, 904 save percentage, 250 goals against, 2 shutouts on the season. Last 5 games, 919. And as we have seen, all of a sudden, he's on a little string now where he's getting a majority. And listen, he started 3 of the last 5. This is not, oh my God, he's taken over the number 1. But we see for the first time in Carter Hart's career, he's not the clear-cut, you have to play 2/3 of the games no matter what. And this competition, I think, is going to push both of them to some really, really solid levels. Also, in the world of they're going to need to resign Carter Hart soon.
That's a big one.
Hopefully, maybe it keeps
A
his
little
number
less.
down.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we feel about what we're seeing out of both goalies and the way they've been handled?
This is the best possible outcome. I've been saying since the summertime that this should be a 1A, 1B situation with these guys, and that seems to be what it's settling into. Unless one of them, I guess, gets super shitty and one of them gets really good. Unless that happens, which I don't think it's going to. It's looking like a 1A, 1B, and that's fantastic because A, maybe Carter Hart doesn't get hurt this year. Gets hurt every year. Maybe with this, he doesn't get hurt. We have Sam Ersson looking great, which means that maybe if Carter Hart is a dick about the contract and wants a ridiculous amount of money or term, we don't have to worry that the team's going to fall apart if we lose Carter Hart because Sam Ersson's good, and we've proven it because he's played a bunch of games and he's been good in them. So it's like there's literally no downside to this shaking out this way.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah, and I can say too, if you're worried about there being contention between the two goalies in the locker room today, I was watching them just shoot the shit across the hallway. I mean, I don't think they're besties, but I didn't get the sense that that Hart is frustrated that Ersson is taking his job or that Ersson got that start. It very much seems like they're still cool with each other, and I didn't expect that Hart would get frustrated and start blaming it on Ersson if he started losing some starts. Look, Hart's a competitor. He wants to play. I'm sure he would have liked to have started last night's game, but I don't think it's going to make it so he then is a dick to Ersson because he's annoyed that he's not playing in 3 out of 4 games like he was before. Look, and Kelly, everything you said is 100% true. I think the emergence of Sam Ersson is nothing but good for the Flyers on multiple levels. And obviously, you didn't mention the other thing, which is it gives the Flyers serious insurance if Carter Hart was involved with Hockey Canada. Was involved. It's huge. I mean, and it's not something that we want to dwell too much on because we've dwelled on it enough. We don't know one way or the other. But the fact of the matter is that there is a chance that Carter Hart may be suspended for an extended period of time at some point in the future, and maybe a guy that the Flyers understandably no longer want as a member of their team if it turns out he did some really, really bad things.
Yeah.
And to have a guy like Ersson who is showing that he can be a legitimate NHL starting goalie and a pretty good one, maybe not an elite one. I don't watch Sam Ersson and I say, there's the next Henrik Lundqvist. But if he can be a guy who every year is between 914 and 920 save percentage, I'll take that.
You can win with that.
That's fine.
Speaking of, these Swede kids are little bitches. Jumping USA players. Now 30 seconds left. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick. Good. I love a little international contention.
Yeah, get mad.
We're gonna wrap up shortly, but I did this work on shootouts, so I want to talk about it. I know Charlie hates the shootout.
Hate the shootout.
But it is a part of the game.
Yes,
it has been
Charles.
around for a long, long time. It's coming up on 20 years soon.
I don't like that. Don't say that again.
The shootout has been around longer in my life than it hasn't been. It's just what it is. It ain't going anywhere anytime soon, because if it was, they would just get rid of it. Now, they keep saying, like, oh, well, we need to figure out how to, like, stop letting games go to shootouts. Should we extend 3-on-3? Are we going to fix 3-on-3? It's like, if you hate the shootout, get rid of the shootout.
Just do ties.
The standings are the same, so, like, just bring back ties.
I was
What's
totally
the difference?
fine with ties.
Ties
yeah,
are
like,
No
fine.
issue with ties.
Especially considering, like, nothing changed. Like, overtime losses are just ties now. You got 8 points. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I did some digging on the Flyers shootout stats. The Flyers...
They're real bad.
Let's talk about all-time. This is the best one. All-time in shootouts, the Florida Panthers are the 30th ranked team in save percentage plus shooting percentage at .939. Coming in at 31st... Once again, they're ahead of Seattle. Seattle's real bad, and they've only ever had 13.
Yeah.
So they're 32nd
They'll
in
pass the
everything.
Flyers eventually.
By next year.
It's going to happen.
The Flyers are 31st behind Florida, 896. The drop-off
So good.
is unbelievable. Not only can they not score, they also can't stop.
No.
They are by far the worst. 373 all-time winning percentage in shootouts.
Oof.
It is... I realize that if I were to flip a coin 100 times, maybe only 37 it would come up tails. That's possible. But this is a little more than that. Like, this isn't just the Flyers have had bad luck. For 20 years, they have been fucking awful at this. And there is a stylistic thing, like, yeah, when one of your leading goal scorers for these 20 years is Mike Knuble or Scott Hartnell, like, maybe you're not going to win the breakaway competition.
Mitchkov is
But
going to
they
change
can't
this, I think.
score or
You would
stop other teams from scoring for the entirety of the existence of this thing that could determine, like, what happens. And we've seen it actually determine those things because somehow they won that one at the end of 2010. Somehow fucking Brian Boucher
was the
won them a
greatest
shootout
ever.
against Henrik Lundqvist. I guess that is the example of, like, none of this matters. Like, when I can say Brian Boucher versus Henrik Lundqvist and the Flyers made the playoffs and went to the Cup final because they won that competition.
Yeah.
That's the example of this doesn't matter.
Which is why I'm not saying the shootout doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that it's not worth analyzing because it's all bullshit.
I don't think it takes... Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, like, yes, but also you have to put the team in the best position to try to win it. And there are ways to do that and ways to not. Like, you can't just pretend that, like, putting the fourth line players out 1, 2,
True.
3 are just as good of a shot as
But
you know what
they
I mean?
don't do that.
Not always. But
When have the Flyers put a fourth line
no,
player out there in the shootout?
I'm just saying, like,
Forster
Bill's-
had some shifts last night.
Bill's thing about Konecny not getting a shot last night it's absurd that he didn't.
Now he is 2 for 17 in his career.
Okay,
not a good ratio. However, a lot of those came early. This current version of Konecny has not had as many opportunities.
Also, on this night in this game,
against this goaltender,
he's scoring goals.
This team scores, let's say, all of its goals on the rush, and they're basically all scored by Travis Konecny. Maybe he's the one who should. Tyson Forster hasn't scored in a fucking month. He goes.
Yeah.
Like, all right, Couturier, he's got the one move. He's had some success this year. I'll allow it, even though, like, it seems as if everyone's
I
caught
was going
on
to say,
to the one
when you
move.
only have one move, everyone figures out your one move eventually.
Bobby Brink, last time he got to go, all right, he impressed me. He should probably go every time. He's one of these guys. Maybe Tyson Forster becomes one of these guys. He has not scored in a month. I just don't understand not putting Konecny out there in this situation. It's stupid.
I can't get angry about it because I think all of this is just coin flips anyway. I just can't. There's a reason why I said on the post game, I don't even
make your own luck. Have a two-sided coin.
I don't even know where to look to see shootout records because I don't care.
Right.
Because to me, it's all just coin flips.
I would agree that, like, macro level, I agree with you. Macro level, it's a coin flip. But, like, each individual game those decisions, I think, can be analyzed in a logical way. Last night's game, there's zero reason why Travis Konecny isn't the first guy you're putting out on the ice to try to score a goal. If he scores, maybe the whole thing goes differently because now you're in their head. Now your team's feeling confident. Like, a whole bunch of things could change. But, like, does it matter in the long run? No. But I think, like, individually, micro level, a shootout can be analyzed and planned out logically. And a lot of times Tortorella doesn't do it.
To me, if there's anything that's worth analyzing from a shootout, in my opinion, I do think that goalies, true talent, does matter in a shootout. Because there are some goalies who are good on breakaways.
Hence the Flyers
and
record.
some goalies who are not. Right. The Flyers have had a lot of goalies during these last 20 years who are not good on breakaways, which is why it was honestly disappointing they lost last night, because I think Sam Ersson is like maybe their first goalie they've had in the last 2 decades that is good on breakaways. Like, he's given up 2 goals in shootouts so far. One was a TJ Oshie, one was a Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
I'll take it. It sucks they lost that game, but like, if those are the only guys that can regularly beat Sam Ersson in the shootout, I'll live with it.
No, it's only the star guys.
Yeah.
Like, and the dudes who it's like, yeah, I would put them out like in an all-star competition. It's like, I would choose them.
Yeah.
Like, all right, they're probably going to score.
I think if
especially against a rookie.
It was a bummer to me. I really hoped that Carter Hart was going to be a good shootout goalie, and it doesn't appear that he is. It looks like
he's average.
He's average at best.
He's not a plus the way Ersson's been.
Exactly. Yeah. It does seem to me, and again, small sample, it does seem like Sam Ersson might be a legitimately plus shootout goalie. And if he, we'll see what happens. If he ultimately becomes the Flyers' #1 goalie in the next 2-3 years, maybe that shooting record gets a little bit better. We'll see.
They got a long way to go.
They sure do.
59 and 99 all time. I don't remember those 59.
Oh, man, we're 1 away from 100?
Yeah, 100.
Oh, man, we got to celebrate
100
this.
shootout losses.
We got to celebrate.
That should be a thing.
We
got
have
to tell the graphics department to build something.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
we
maybe
got to
put some highlights
next
together.
week. Get it ready. It'll be next
buy a
week.
bottle of champagne, pop it on air.
Ersson's next start, probably.
They
The
can't
inordinate
stop.
number of his games go to shootout.
I did not realize.
Stop going to overtime, so.
Yeah. I didn't realize they were 99 now. Man, they're only 1 away from 100. I am pumped. They've got to be the first team to lose 100 games in the shootout, too, right?
Almost
have
positive.
to be.
Almost.
Since they're by far the worst.
Yes. All right. And that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers. Thank you very much to our sponsor, Mortgage CS. Make sure you text Ben, ask him, why didn't Travis Konecny get a shot last night? Or, like, ask him about your mortgage and all that situation, the whole thing, buying homes, etc.
But also ask about Travis Konecny getting a shot at the shootout.
Ask him about Travis Konecny.
That's the most, they'll like that.
Yeah, that's the most important thing to me. All right, my name is Bill Matz for Charlie O'Connor and for Kelly Hinkle. Have a great week, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.